Welcome to Xi Jinping Briefing. The content of the briefing includes Decoding China, Inevitable Taiwan Tensions in 2024. At start of Lunar Year of the Dragon, China seeks to assert its own interpretation of cultural icon. China is heading for a lost decade if it doesn't reform and grow, an analyst says. The Taiwan catastrophe. Putin is once again telling Russians to have more babies, and this time he's saying ethnic survival is at stake. Decoding China, Inevitable Taiwan Tensions in 2024. Deutsche Welle. China has reportedly increased military activity near Taiwan during the Chinese New Year holiday, with at least 43 fighter jets and 29 warships spotted near the island in the first 6 days of the Year of the Dragon. Beijing considers Taiwan to be Chinese territory and has been conducting regular combat readiness patrols in the Taiwan Strait. Military experts in Taiwan and the U.S. believe that PLA patrols and exercises will continue to increase in the future. It is feared that China may use military means to isolate Taiwan without directly attacking it. The Chinese Communist Party does not tolerate visits by foreign politicians to Taiwan. In 2022, after Nancy Pelosi visited Taiwan, China carried out its largest ever military exercises around the island, in a show of force. The most pressing threat to Taiwan is believed to be day-to-day incursions, rather than a full-scale invasion. Analysts suggest that China is more likely to carry out a military blockade against Taiwan in the next 5 years, rather than a full-scale invasion. At start of Lunar Year of the Dragon, China seeks to assert its own interpretation of cultural icon. The Toronto Star. China is seeking to assert its own interpretation of the cultural icon of the dragon, during the Lunar Year of the Dragon. The Chinese state media have promoted the use of the anglicized version of the dragon, Long, in order to emphasize the distinction between the traditional Chinese view of the mythological creature as a symbol of good fortune and the Western view of it as dangerous. The Chinese government has been striving to assert China's power in international affairs, including through culture and language, under the leadership of Xi Jinping. However, the push for the adoption of Long has been criticized as excessively nationalistic and linguistically unconventional. China is heading for a lost decade if it doesn't reform and grow, an analyst says. Yahoo! China could face a lost decade of economic growth if it does not undertake significant reforms, according to Rory Green, the chief China economist at globaldata.ts Lombard. Green compared the situation to Japan's lost decade in the 1990s, which saw economic stagnation after asset and credit bubbles burst. China faces multiple challenges including a property crisis, deflationary pressure, a demographic crisis and trade tensions with the West. Green also noted that China's leaders appear to be divided over whether to stimulate the debt-laden economy, with some calling for structural reform and others advocating for growth. The Taiwan catastrophe. Foreign affairs. China's potential annexation or invasion of Taiwan would have disastrous consequences for the United States and its allies. Taiwan's strategic location anchors Japan's defense and prevents China from threatening U.S. allies in the Western Pacific. Additionally, Taiwan's subjugation would hinder democratic aspirations in the region and have severe economic consequences, given its role as the primary producer of advanced microchips. The loss of Taiwanese chips would disrupt global supply chains, cause a global economic depression, and potentially lead to a race among nations to develop their own nuclear arsenals. Taiwan's importance goes beyond its strategic and economic significance. It is a full-fledged liberal democracy and a beacon of hope for democratic aspirations in the region, including in China itself. Taiwan's robust democracy is ranked 8th in the world, ahead of every country in Asia. Its people enjoy freedom of speech, gender equality, and economic prosperity. The loss of Taiwan as a democratic alternative would be a blow to democracy worldwide. China's annexation of Taiwan would also have geopolitical implications. It would enable China to project power throughout Asia and beyond, challenging the United States' position as a global superpower. It could lead to a nuclear cascade in which U.S. allies in Asia, such as Japan and South Korea, develop their own nuclear weapons. This would further destabilize the region and potentially lead to nuclear proliferation in other parts of the world. In conclusion, the potential annexation or invasion of Taiwan by China would have catastrophic consequences for the United States and its allies. It would disrupt global supply chains, threaten democracy in the region, and undermine U.S. security guarantees. The international community must recognize the importance of Taiwan's sovereignty and take action to prevent China's aggression. Putin is once again telling Russians to have more babies, and this time he's saying ethnic survival is at stake. Yahoo! Russian President Vladimir Putin has called on citizens to have more children to preserve the country's ethnicity, as Russia faces a demographic crisis and shrinking population. Putin stated that for Russia to survive as an ethnic group, families need to have at least 2 children, and in order to expand and develop, they need at least 3 children. The country's population has been declining for years, with the ongoing war in Ukraine exacerbating the brain drain and labor shortage. This is not the first time Putin has urged Russians to have more children, as he called on women to have as many as 8 children in November. Prabowo's presidency, new chapter in Indonesia-China ties or business as usual. South China Morning Post. Indonesia's newly elected president, Prabowo Subianto, is expected to maintain a pragmatic approach to China in terms of foreign policy. Despite his past nationalistic rhetoric and military background, Prabowo is likely to continue the non-aligned stance of outgoing President Joko Widodo. He has promised to maintain an independent foreign policy and good relations with all of Indonesia's neighbors. Prabowo may also use Indonesia's non-aligned position to benefit from the competing interests of China and the United States in the country. China is Indonesia's largest trade and investment partner, and Chinese investment has been pivotal in the country's infrastructure development. Prabowo is unlikely to upend the economic cooperation that Widodo established with China, particularly through the Belt and Road Initiative. However, he may seek to diversify Indonesia's investment portfolio and look for other sources of investment. Prabowo may also focus on strengthening Indonesia's maritime defense capabilities and enforcing sovereignty in the South China Sea, where China's claims overlap with Indonesia's exclusive economic zone. Overall, Prabowo is expected to maintain close ties with China, particularly in terms of investment and infrastructure development. However, he may also seek to balance China's influence by strengthening relations with the United States in the defense sector. Prabowo has emphasized the importance of strengthening Indonesia's military might and defending the country's interests. It remains to be seen how Prabowo's interests align or conflict with China's interests during his time in office. Ladies and gentlemen, 6 Doctor here, bringing you the latest news from the 6 Degrees world. Today, we discussed a wide range of topics, from possible tensions between China and Taiwan, China's cultural push during the Year of the Dragon, the risks facing China's economy, the potential consequences of China's annexation of Taiwan, Putin's call for more babies in Russia, and the implications of Indonesia's new president on its relationship with China. Let's dive deeper into these stories. Starting with China and Taiwan, tensions have been rising as China increases military activity near Taiwan. While a full-scale invasion is unlikely, experts fear that China may resort to a military blockade against Taiwan. This would have severe consequences for the United States and its allies, disrupting global supply chains and potentially leading to a nuclear cascade in the region. In a different light, China is also using the Lunar Year of the Dragon to assert its own interpretation of the dragon as a symbol of good fortune. The Chinese government has been promoting the anglicized version of the dragon, long, to emphasize its cultural significance. However, this move has been criticized as excessively nationalistic and linguistically unconventional. Shifting gears to China's economy, experts warn that without significant reforms, China could face a lost decade of economic growth, similar to what Japan experienced in the 1990s. China is grappling with multiple challenges, including a property crisis, deflationary pressure, a demographic crisis, and trade tensions with the West. The country's leaders are divided on whether to stimulate the debt-laden economy or focus on structural reform. Now, let's talk about the potential consequences of China's annexation or invasion of Taiwan. Beyond its strategic and economic significance, Taiwan is a full-fledged liberal democracy and a beacon of hope for democratic aspirations in the region. Its loss would be a blow to democracy worldwide and could lead to a nuclear cascade as U.S. allies in the region develop their own nuclear weapons. Moving on to Russia, President Putin is once again urging Russians to have more children to preserve the country's ethnicity. Russia is facing a demographic crisis and a shrinking population, exacerbated by the ongoing war in Ukraine. Putin's call for more children is not new, but it highlights the urgency of the situation. Lastly, we discussed Indonesia's new president, Prabowo Subianto, and his expected approach to China. Despite his past nationalistic rhetoric, Prabowo is likely to continue the non-aligned stance of his predecessor. He is expected to maintain close ties with China in terms of investment and infrastructure development, while also seeking to balance China's influence by strengthening relations with the United States in the defense sector. In conclusion, the stories we discussed today shed light on the complex dynamics in the 6 Degrees world. Tensions between China and Taiwan, China's cultural push, the risks facing China's economy, the potential consequences of China's actions, Putin's call for more babies in Russia, and Indonesia's new president's approach to China all have far-reaching implications. These stories remind us of the interconnectedness of our world and the importance of understanding and discussing these issues. So, what are your thoughts? I welcome you to join the discussion and share your ideas. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.